Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm JP and you are watching The Buzz. And today I want to take you on a ride in my Tesla Model 3 with the brand new Hardware 3 upgrade. That's right, I am one of the lucky ones. I finally received my Hardware 3 upgrade. We're going to take the Tesla Model 3 out on the road to see if there are any noticeable improvements in AutoPilot and talk about some of the features that have changed with the Hardware 3 upgrade. Come along for the ride.
All right, so we now have Hardware 3 installed, and I want to put it to the test using Navigate on AutoPilot to see if it's any better than the Hardware 2.5 from that perspective. I don't know if it was just me or not, but in the latest update 2020.4.1, I sort of had to stop using AutoPilot because the car kept on wavering in the lane. It couldn't keep it straight, and it was actually very annoying. So really, for some time now, I haven't used AutoPilot or Navigate on AutoPilot because of that. So with the new Hardware 3 update, I want to put it to the test and see how well it does. We have about a 55-mile commute, and we're going to see how long we can go without interacting or disengaging AutoPilot. And then I also want to talk about a few things about the experience with the Hardware 3 update and some of the things that have changed on the screen here as we go through this drive. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get it activated. It already has my work set, so we're going to go ahead and engage AutoPilot. And a few things to note. I'm going to go ahead and let it do its thing here and see how well it does. All right. Already looking pretty good. So a few things to note here is I do have my car set to Mad Max, and I'm just going to speed up here a little bit so I can keep up the flow of traffic. So the car will jump in and out of the lanes a little more quickly, and in heavier traffic you sort of need that because you have a very small window of opportunity per se to get from a lane to a gap in the other lane you're trying to get into. So here we go again. Wow, very smooth actually, and it didn't wait like it used to. It engaged the turn signal, it said it was going to get over, and it did it fairly quickly and very smoothly actually. So I'm very impressed with that. Where usually before it was, hey, let me engage the turn signal, I'm going to wait a few moments and then get over, and everybody behind you's like, hey, are you going to get over or what? But okay, so the first two lane changes were pretty good. One was to get into the fast lane to pass the vehicle, and the other was to get back in to the non-passing lane so that we can cruise at our set speed. So the few other things that sort of didn't work very well with the previous version or Hardware 2.5 is AutoPilot. I don't know why it wants to go that way, but we're going to let it do its thing here. It should not do that because I'm actually getting into a right lane to pass, perhaps. I don't know. So that's a little odd. It never did that before. But with previously in Hardware 2.5, it just was still quirky, and it just wasn't exactly everything that we hoped AutoPilot would be. Now, hopefully with the hardware change, it does make it a little bit better. And you can see here, hopefully you can, the arrows saying that I'm going faster than the other lane, and it usually brings me down to that speed, but it kept me going here. Okay, we have the vehicle here, and it's gonna let it pass, and we're gonna get back over. It's sped up very nicely. Very good, actually, very good. So now it wants to get into the fast lane because you can see I'm set to 76. I'm only doing 68 miles per hour. So the car is looking to get into that fast lane so that we can try and maintain that speed. Again, very smooth with the lane changes. Good, I'm glad we got these lane changes out of the way here this morning right away. So back to my 2.5 rant. It was still quirky, and it just did things that were unexpected, like stopping all of a sudden or slowing down all of a sudden. Transitions were not very smooth, going from lane to lane, and especially going from a freeway to another freeway, which we will be doing up here shortly. And it's just very abrupt. It gets into the lane and comes back very quickly to realign itself in the center of their lane, but it's not a smooth transition like you or I would do if we were driving the vehicle. It's very abrupt, and hopefully we will see the difference with the Hardware 3 versus 2.5 in those types of scenarios. I'm hopeful to see the car engage the turn signal a little sooner and gradually get into the deacceleration lane and bring itself back in nice and smooth. That's what I'm hoping to see here. We're gonna find out in just a moment as we get onto another expressway. So some of the other things about the Hardware 3 upgrade is that for those of you who have already had it done and you weren't able to save any of your seat settings or any of your navigation settings like your home, your work, and things like that, I want to tell you that Tesla can absolutely save your settings. When I went in to get my Hardware 3 update, I talked to the service manager and was just like, hey, I know that a bunch of people have gotten their Hardware 3 updates, but no one was able to save all the data in the car. And he's like, yeah, I know. We do have the ability to do so, but we're trying to get these things pumped out. That's why we're not taking the additional time it requires to save your data. So I asked him, I said, well, if you do have some time, if you wouldn't mind saving my data, I would truly appreciate it. And lo and behold, he was actually able to take care of me. All my data was saved in the car when I got back in. It was really, really nice not to have to set everything back up again. And I give my hats off to the Tesla folks who are working very hard to get all this stuff done. But for those of you who haven't got your Hardware 3 update, if you're kind and polite and if you ask nicely, they may go ahead and do that for you if they have the opportunity to do so. So sorry for you folks that had to re-enter all your information, but Tesla was able to move my data from the 2.5 hardware to the 3.0 hardware. So thumbs up to Tesla, that was fantastic. So if you guys haven't noticed amongst my rambling, we have done a whole bunch of lane changes this morning, and I'm not quite sure that I would be doing all these lane changes myself on my commute in. But nonetheless, it's doing it very well. It's nice and smooth. But again, I think sometimes the car, see, here we go. Now I can get why. I don't know if the car knows, but there's an on-ramp up here and a bunch of cars getting on, but you see it got over to the non-passing lane, back over, and like some of those types of things, I just don't know how Tesla's gonna fix that, because me knowing the road and can see ahead, I know that that is an entrance from a different freeway. I'm gonna stay in the left lane just to allow those cars getting onto the expressway enough room to be able to do so. So those are the quirky things that I'm talking about, and it looks like it's still apparent in the Hardware 3 update, but we're gonna see how well it does here. So we're gonna be getting off onto another expressway, and I wanna see how well it takes this ramp. Here is the exit ramp. Let's see how well it does here. Okay. Wow. Wow. That was absolutely fantastic. That is the best that this car has taken that off ramp since I've purchased this vehicle. That is fantastic. That was smooth. Very, very nice. I hope you guys were able to see that. It did turn the turn signal on a little bit late. We were almost at the deacceleration lane opening before it actually turned on the turn signal. But nonetheless, it took that very smoothly. Fantastic. All right, so I do have a toll booth that I'm coming up to. Oh, and see, here's Hardware 3 again, all the cones. So I'm gonna disengage AutoPilot to let me get through the toll booth, and then we'll go ahead and re-enable it. So we can continue our testing. But wow, I am super impressed. I don't mean to be all giddy about that. That is absolutely fantastic. It never ever takes that on-ramp smoothly. All right, well, if that's gonna be the case, that's a major, major improvement. All right, so we're re-engaged, and let's just take a quick look at what we've driven so far. We're gonna minus about 5 miles off of that. So about 15 miles or so with Navigate on Autopilot, and I haven't had to touch or cancel anything that it's done thus far. And hopefully that continues to be the case. Get out of there. It really is so much nicer to be able to kick back and sort of let the car do the driving on the way into work and on the way home. It's a little more relaxing. Not that I'm not engaged, but I'm not, white fisting it on my steering wheel. I'm just letting the car do what it's supposed to do. We're going to increase the speed here a little bit. And it really makes the commute that much better. Okay, so one other thing to note about the Hardware 3 change is I had my favorite FM radio stations in the order that I wanted them on the screen. They weren't numerically ordered, but since the Hardware 3 update, it automatically changed my radio stations to be in numerical order, which I don't really like. And I actually went back and tried to change them and it wouldn't change. So for whatever reason in Hardware 3, you will see that you have to have your radio stations in numerical order. The other thing that I wanted to note, and you guys will have to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but between my FM stations and my streaming stations, there used to be a line here sort of separating the two, and now it is gone. So I can, instead of pressing and holding to move from my last FM station over to my streaming service, it actually is just one click over and I can get into all my streaming service radios that I have saved as my favorites. So you still see the separation like this for your recents and your favorites, but I remember that line being here as well. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was there. So that was one other thing that has changed within Hardware 3. So in order for you, and I'm sure you guys have seen this before, but I wanted to come into the menu, the software screen, just to show you that you do get an identification that you do have the full self-driving computer, and it is in the software, and you just click the additional information, and you can see right here, Autopilot computer is now full self-driving. This used to say Hardware 2 or Hardware 2.0 or something along those lines. So, but as far as, of course, the visualization aspect of Hardware 3, those were about the only few things that I've noticed different between Hardware 2.5 and Hardware 3. Everything else is pretty much the same. So far, so good. We have a little bit of ways to get into the city where we'll be able to test some additional Autopilot features. It's going to be much heavier traffic. The car is going to have to react a little more quickly and abruptly. So we're going to see how well that works. We do have another exit to another freeway, which we'll also be testing as well. All right, we're going to get over here out of the way of the semi-truck. Very nice and easy, smooth lane change. It's not too abrupt, which I definitely had an issue with Hardware 2.5. When it finally made a decision to get over, it was bam, it was over, and it usually oversteered and had to come back and correct itself a little bit. But this is very nice. It's actually coming across very smooth. It's getting itself right into the middle of the lane, so there's no adjustments that are happening. Very, very smooth transition. And we should see, hopefully right after this semi, we should be getting over. Wow, right away. Look at that. That's fantastic. I like that because I'm probably keeping the traffic behind me a little slower than they would want to go. And I want to be able to get out of that lane as quickly as I possibly can to let those folks go ahead and pass if they so choose to. And the car's doing it perfectly, just as I would if I were driving the vehicle myself. So Autopilot is working very, very well in that regard. And here we have a nice turn. See how well it handles here. Okay, great. We're actually going to make a lane change on a turn. Let's see how well it does. Look at that. That is fantastic. Again, put itself right in the middle of the lane as we were going around a turn. Absolutely fantastic. Very impressed thus far. And it looks like we should be doing another lane change on a turn here once we get past that semi. And immediately, look at that. Fantastic. And the reason why I say that's fantastic is because I know a lot of people tend to hang out in the left lane when they really shouldn't. And the car knows road etiquette and needs to get over as soon as they have an opening to do so. In a Tesla Model 3, with Navigate on Autopilot, with Hardware 3, is doing just that. And it definitely keeps the distance of the car in front of you based on your car setting that you have from a following distance perspective. Does a really good job doing that. And look, it just waited for all that traffic to pass to finally get over. It's doing fantastic. So here's the tricky part. I have another on-ramp coming onto the expressway. I'm gonna cancel that. So that's one interaction that I did because it doesn't know that those cars are coming onto that on-ramp. And if I would have got over, I would have just caused a mess there. So I just wanna stay in the left lane, get past that on-ramp, and let these cars enter the expressway. So I think that's one thing that they will have to try and figure out how to resolve, is when cars are entering an expressway, for the car to know to stay inside its lane. All right, we are continuing our onslaught of lane changes, which is doing a very fantastic job. I guess Autopilot feels that it'd be bored if it didn't make a bunch of lane changes, so that's what it does. Some definitely required, some not so much, but nonetheless, the lane changes that it is making, it's really doing a good job. Very, very smooth transition. It's in and out of traffic. It's waiting for cars to pass when they are either behind or on the side. So it's really identifying all of its surroundings and doing a great job making and deciding on those lane changes. I'm still super excited about the lane change that it made getting onto that expressway. It was the smoothest that I've ever seen it. It was absolutely fantastic. All right, we're getting closer to the city, so let's take a look. So 38 miles, so let's just call it an even 30 miles that we've driven this far, and I've only had to disengage Autopilot one time, which is absolutely fantastic. Really just sitting back, letting the car do its thing, taking a couple calls for work already this morning while in the vehicle. Really doing a fantastic job. So we got about another 15 miles or so to go, and hopefully it will continue to do a good job as we make our way into the city. Now we have another toll coming up here. I have some traffic. You can see it's doing a really, really good job here. Noting that, look at that, fantastic. And you can see that car creeping up there behind me, wanted to get in, let me in, so that was good. Really, I mean, jumped right in when it was supposed to, instead of hesitating and making the car behind me have a difficult time making a decision. Got right over, which is exactly the way that a vehicle should operate on the road. Just telling me that Autopilot will be unavailable here shortly as we come through our last toll. And I'm gonna go ahead and just disengage. I'm not counting the 2 disengagements, really 3 disengagements, a knock on Autopilot. That is just me. Obviously, I have to stop and pay the toll. All right, our last toll. And we are on our descent into the city, I'll call it. And let's get out of this traffic here a little bit. We'll re-engage. Nice and smooth. We'll crank up the speed. So you guys comment down below. Let me know how Autopilot has been working for you, on those of you who are still on 2.5 and those of you who are on 3.0. Have you noticed any significant difference? And, you know, there's a lot of things that go into this, but really for me, ever since the 2020.4.1 update, Autopilot has been horrible. And already I could see I'm still on the same software. Now I have the Hardware 3 update, but there's one thing that I think changed, is that Autopilot had to recalibrate itself after Hardware 3 was installed. So just like when you first picked up your Tesla, you have, I'm gonna go ahead and cancel that for a moment so I can finish talking to you guys about this. So AutoPilot had to recalibrate itself after hardware 3 was installed. Now it's very possible that on my 2.5 hardware, there was something that just wasn't quite right, whether it's a camera or a sensor that wasn't sensing things like it should. But after that calibration occurred, or after that recalibration occurred, everything seemed to be so much better. And for all of you who are waiting for your hardware 3 update, you will have to go through that same process. And I think that over time, I think that the system should go through a recalibration process anyway. Like, let's just say after a year of ownership or 2 years of ownership, the car should recalibrate itself, just because. I mean, it is a computer. The information that it's getting may not be 100% accurate. So maybe that will be something Tesla will do. Maybe it won't be, or maybe it's not needed. But anyway, I wanted to let you know that the car is still on 2020.4.1, now with hardware 3 installed, and AutoPilot is so much better. And I think it has to do with the recalibration that occurred after the hardware 3 installation. So let me know if you had your car upgraded to hardware 3, did you notice a difference after the system recalibrated, or is it pretty much the same? Comment down below. All right, so we're gonna get ready to take 2 fairly nice turns here and get onto another expressway. So let's see how the car handles it. I'm hopeful. You can see that the speed limit on the turn is 45 and I'm still at 60. So hopefully it recognizes that it has to slow down a little bit and it takes the turns like it should. Let's see how it does. Very good. And I think partly that is because there's a car in front of me, but smooth. It's exactly what should be happening. Very smooth. All right, so let's see what happens when I get down off this on-ramp and see if the car will try and make a couple lane changes here to get me over to the faster lanes. Let's see how it does. Already starting to increase speed a little bit. All right, there's our initial lane change like I expected. Fantastic. And it's still increasing the speed up to 70 where I have it set. Very good, smooth. I'm telling you, it's just like if I were driving the car. It's making those same maneuvers at the same times that I would normally be doing it as well. So absolutely fantastic. And remember, the more that we drive using AutoPilot, the more information gets sent to the mothership, which then gets downloaded into the neural network, which makes our cars much better when using AutoPilot features. So use it if you got it, so that with every update, the cars continue to get better. All right, so we are on our way into the city, and traffic will be getting heavier here shortly. So we're gonna see how well this car actually does. And this is what I mean. You'll start seeing, traffic clog up, and it's gonna be difficult for the car to make lane changes, even if I were to drive it, just because of the amount of cars that are on the road, the small window of opportunity you have to make those lane changes. And I got a guy right on my butt, and there he goes. Have a good day, sir. All right, so I was hoping to see something change here, but it's not, because I certainly would have made a couple lane changes by now. And here's the arrow showing that my speed is faster than the vehicles on the left side of me, and it's supposed to reduce the speed to even out with them. I guess it sort of did, keeping up with the flow of traffic. And you can see I'm in a turn lane, and I really need to get over because my exit to the expressway is in the left lane. Telling me there's an upcoming lane change. Let's see if it does it. It has an opportunity right now, and look at that. Nope, but it didn't take it. It has a small window of opportunity, and it didn't take it. So let's see what it does. I'm gonna let it do its thing, even though I might look like an idiot who don't know what he's doing on the road, but we're gonna see what it does here. It wants to slow down. to get over, and there's a car, it looks like it's gonna let me. Will it take advantage? Look at that, a little bit shaky, but it did it. It finally did it. I think it slowed down a little bit too much, a little bit too abrupt, but it did take advantage of that lane change. I don't know if you saw it, but the steering wheel was, I don't know what to do, and then it did it. So, could use some improvement there, but it got me into the space that it wanted to get into to get me over to the lane that I needed to be in. I guess it wasn't the best, but it did it. As you guys know, people sometimes aren't that friendly, and they're not gonna let you in, even though you have your turn signal on, trying to get over. People really don't care, so sometimes you have to be a little aggressive and make your way over in a very small window. So congratulations for doing that, Tesla. Oh, holy cow. Oh, holy cow. So look at that. That was fantastic. This guy pretty much just cut me off. The car reacted appropriately by putting on the brakes and avoided an accident. Because you want to know what? To be honest with you, I wasn't even paying attention. I was looking down here at the screen. And this is what I mean about driving in the city. You just never know what's going to happen, and you have to be prepared at all times. I have to make a couple of lane changes coming around this turn in order to get off on the exit that I need to, which is not the exit that is showing on the navigation. I'm gonna go ahead and cancel that. That's 2 times that I've canceled or interacted with AutoPilot to change a setting. I just don't need to get over. I really need to stay in this lane. And of course, there's a guy right here. It really didn't make sense for me to do that lane change. So I've interacted with AutoPilot twice, and we have driven almost 50 miles. So we'll say 40 miles with AutoPilot, give or take. Oh, hey, Mr. Semi-Truck. How are you doing? Again, the car acted appropriately. It didn't slam on the brakes. It slowed down, of course, but it did just like I would do if I were driving the vehicle. Absolutely fantastic. All right, let's see. Yep, gets over. And you can see it is a get over now maneuver, which I really, really like, because you have to do that in these instances. There's just not a whole lot of room. I'm impressed. Sorry, guys, I feel a little giddy this morning, but I'm impressed because, honestly, the car didn't do these kinds of things the way that it's doing it today. So what that means with Hardware 3 update, with the recalibration of AutoPilot, with the updates that have been given to the car for free, AutoPilot and Navigate on AutoPilot have absolutely improved. I'm not stressed out driving anymore. I mean, there's still some things you got to be cautious about, but it's absolutely fantastic to see this car get better and better over time with 3 updates. And heck, back there, that could have been an accident. I could have had 2 accidents. When the guy cut me off, and then when the semi-truck got in front of me. If I wasn't paying attention, if I was on my phone and I didn't have AutoPilot engaged, or even traffic-aware cruise control would have done the same thing for you in those instances. But look at that. That's a big deal. Not only is it convenient, but these are safety features that are available to you in your Model 3 and your S and your X and the upcoming Y. So these are not just convenience features. These are true safety features that Tesla has provided to us, and it's just amazing. They work really well. All right, so AutoPilot wants to take me on a different route than I want to go. So up here, I'm gonna try and let it get over as far as it can. I'm gonna go ahead and disengage. This is where we exit the freeway for the day. But there's a couple of things that I wanted to show everybody from a Hardware 3 visualization perspective. So we're gonna see if it can get over here in this very congested traffic, and then I'm gonna go ahead and disengage so that we can continue on the path that we want to get to work. And this is really tricky because we have 2 on-ramps coming off of the expressway that merge into here, and there is just a bunch of traffic and cars going everywhere. So it wants to get over. We see the big red bus behind us, but it's slowing down. Oh, it didn't know what to do, came back and finished the maneuver. Look at that. It actually tried it, wasn't sure, came back, and then said, no, you know what? I can make that change, and it completed it. That's absolutely fantastic. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and initiate this lane change. And look at that. When I initiate that lane change, it was immediate. Just amazing. Autopilot has gotten so much better, and now I find it usable, where previously I just couldn't use it because it just wasn't doing the things that I wanted it to do or that the car needed to do. All right, so that is gonna end our Navigate on Autopilot experience. We drove about 45 miles, folks. 45 miles with Navigate on Autopilot in some very, very heavy traffic. It made some fantastic maneuvers. It actually interacted well with all the cars around it. It took off ramps. It got on an expressway. It has done everything that you would want the car to do as if you were driving it yourself. I totally give it a thumbs up and am happy to see the improvements in Hardware 3 with the recalibration of Autopilot. It's working so well. So I wanted to finish up the video talking about the visualization aspect of Hardware 3. Now, this is something that I was not sure that I was going to see on the screen, and that is the red lights. Now, I knew that it was going to see the traffic light, but I really didn't expect it to show me the color of the light on the screen itself. But it doesn't just end there. Watch what happens when the light turns green. I was completely not aware that I was going to see that physical change on the screen itself. So watch what happens here. And of course, I'm sure many of you are going to say, hey, JP, that's been like that since the inception of Hardware 3 and the version 10 update and all those things. Well, of course, I didn't have it in my car, so I really wasn't paying that much attention to it. So you'll see that the traffic lights will actually change color on the screen, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Boom, look at that. That's awesome. Now, of course, I understand, and we all understand, that in order for the car to do city driving, it has to interpret that. But I didn't know that they were actually going to display it on the screen here for us to see. And it's really accurate. It even shows it turning yellow. So now I will say this, that it's not always accurate. It doesn't always pick them up, but for the most part, it actually does, which is pretty amazing. And, you know, I guess thinking back on it, again, yes, I understand that the car needs to recognize it, but I didn't think that we were going to be able to see that on the screen itself. So here's one thing I haven't tested yet. Oh, it did. It did. Now, it was a little bit weird, but so I had a turn arrow there, and the other two lights stayed red. My turn light turned green. I didn't know if the car was going to be able to differentiate that turn arrow and allow the car to proceed. Because remember, in city driving, we have all kinds of turn arrows and just all kinds of different things on the road that the car is going to have to know and understand. It absolutely picked up the turn arrow. It didn't look like an arrow, but the light turned green, indicating that we can actually go ahead and proceed. So that's a big deal, because the car has to be able to interact with all the road signs and lights on the road if Tesla and other manufacturers want to be able to use these cars in the city. And that is Tesla's robo-taxi, right? So it has to be able to know and understand all those things. What a fantastic job. So I guess I'm a little excited because I did not think that I was going to be able to see that representation on the screen. And lo and behold, you absolutely can, which is really cool. So there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for coming along for the ride this morning. I know it was a long video, but I wanted to show you how well Autopilot works on Hardware 3.0 with the recalibration of Autopilot itself, and how well it interacts with all the things that are going on around the car.
So there you have it, folks. You can see that there were certainly some improvements in Hardware 3 as it relates to Autopilot and Navigate on Autopilot. I also walked through some of the changes that I found on the on-screen display, as well as talked about some of the cool visualization aspects of the new Hardware 3 that we now get to see on our screen. All in all, I feel that the upgrade was certainly well worth it. So if you're out there pondering whether or not the upgrade to full self-driving is worth it, I hope this video was able to shed some light on that for you. It certainly isn't perfect, but I can tell you that there is a huge, huge improvement over the previous hardware version. Now, again, I think a lot of this is related to the camera system and all the sensors recalibrating, but I also feel that the car is more deliberate in its actions, which is really, really nice. The car is actually doing or mimicking what I would do on the road if I was driving the car myself. So thank you so much for tuning in, folks. I truly appreciate it. And please, on your way out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We'll catch you on the next one.